You know, most people think creativity is about inspiration. You know the feeling when you're in the shower and have that great idea hit, or you're driving down the street and an idea hits you there, or maybe you're walking on a sandy beach and have a eureka moment. We all know what those moments are like, but the truth is, real creativity isn't about inspiration, it's about perspiration. It's about routine. It's about setting a schedule and making sure those ideas show up. What do you mean, Phil? Can I control my ideas? Absolutely. You can control creativity more than you think. And on today's podcast, we're going to talk about practical creativity. We're going to talk about the kind of creativity that you can schedule, that you can make sure your ideas show up at, and it's going to be incredibly good for you to know. I'm Phil Cooke, and welcome to the Phil Cooke podcast. We're going to be talking about some really interesting things today, and creativity is certainly highest on my list. I think everything I've done in my life has been driven by creativity. I've had the incredible opportunity to work with some wonderfully creative men and women from all over the world, and nothing really excites me, I don't think, like a real creative idea. So let me tell you a little bit about it. The first thing is, when I talk at a movie studio or a television network or a conference somewhere on creativity, I always find that about a third of the audience will raise their hand and tell me they just weren't born creative. Well, let's start with exploding that myth, because I think that is a total myth. The idea that some people are born creative, some people aren't. The truth is, you are born with a blank slate. And the truth is, we have tons of opportunity for creativity throughout our lives. I mean, after all, put a bunch of toddlers together in a room. They're all wildly creative, man. They're coming off the wall with creative ideas. So you can't tell me that some people have it and some people don't. Some people use it, however, and other people don't. We're going to tell you today how to jumpstart your creativity. Now, one of the things we've discovered through research is that creativity in most people takes a significant drop about age 6. Now think about that for a minute. That's the time we start school. Isn't it a curiosity that about the time we start school, our creativity starts to drop? I'll tell you, if I was an educator, if I was somebody in that system, I would really be concerned about that and start investigating what it is about our educational system that suddenly makes our creativity start going away. Something to really think about. But what we know is everybody is creative. The truth is, you just may not be accessing it. You may not be using it. In fact, let me give you, I've got a ton of notes here. I want to talk about it today because let me give you these statistics. I find them interesting. 75% of people think they aren't living up to their creative potential. Think about that. 75% of people like you and me think they're not living up to their creative potential. In fact, people report increasing pressure to be productive instead of creative at work. So it's not just school that's killing our creativity. In many cases, it's work that's killing our creativity because people want us to be more productive instead of focusing on creativity. Now, that's ironic, because on other surveys report that the single skill CEOs are looking for more than any other is creativity. It even ranks higher than integrity on CEO searches when they're looking for new people. Creativity really does matter. And in many ways, and I've talked about this on this podcast before, creativity is the currency of this culture. I live and work in Hollywood, and I can tell you the highest paid people are the people that are extraordinarily creative and know how to tell a story, know how to get their ideas across. In many ways, I say how to make your dream their dream. That's really the point of creativity. But the truth is, many of us work in a client-driven situation, or we work in an office, or we work at a business, or a church, or a ministry, or a nonprofit. We're in some environment where we need to be creative on schedule. We can't wait for that moment of inspiration. And I'll tell you something, there's an interesting book. It came out a few years ago. I'd encourage you to check it out. It's called Daily Rituals: How Artists Work. And the interesting thing, it's by a guy named Mason Curry. It's a terrific little book. And when I read it, I was so fascinated because Mason Curry went and found about a little more than 200 creative people from the last couple hundred years. I mean, artists, writers, sculptors, thinkers, creative people of all kinds. And he didn't look at their work. He just looked at their daily schedule. And you know what he found out, and I find this interesting, he found out the most creative people of the last 100 or 200 years are literally slaves to routine. They're slaves to routine. They're not the people that sleep late, eat when they want, wait for an inspirational idea to happen. They're people that get up at the same time every day. They go to work at the same time every day. They schedule their day the same way. They have lunch at the same time. They knock it off the same time. They go to bed at the same time. These are people that have understood the power of routine. And if you've been online for very long, you've seen hundreds of articles talking about the importance of a morning routine or an evening routine. But the truth is, creativity is really sparked by having a powerful routine and being there every day and sticking to it. So the first thing we didn't understand is that inspiration happens when you have a regular routine. In other words, you need to train your brain that when you show up, something happens. I've always said that the most productive and creative people are the people that know how to connect the seat of their pants to the seat of a chair. You've probably heard me talk about this before, that, we live by circadian rhythm. It runs about 90-minute cycles. And we know that some people are morning people, some people are evening people, some, a smaller sliver, I think, are afternoon people. I'm a morning person. From 6 a.m. till noon, I can write, I can create. I have this energy that's unbelievable. And I can be extraordinarily creative in the morning. After lunch, forget it. Forget it. I'm good for meetings, phone calls, speaking events, recording podcasts, teaching. But when it comes to hardcore creativity, that's not going to happen unless I'm in my morning moment, my morning mode. Now, you may be a rock star and have late night hours. My wife, Kathleen, is late night hours. Other people are more creative after lunch. I don't understand that because it's nap time after lunch. But some people are more creative. Now, I've even seen research recently that said people like to be around other people. But I'll tell you this, and this is another point that you need to understand. Introverts have something going on creativity because real creativity happens in solitude. In solitude. Brainstorming is great. Love brainstorming. I love being with my team at Cook Pictures. I love being with our clients and their teams. I love being social. But the truth is, at some point it's time to go in your office, shut the door, and work it out. I've had more breakthrough ideas in my time alone than I have with other people. Other people can challenge me. They can send me in a new direction. They can give me other ideas. But when it comes to real breakthrough ideas, solitude is where it's at. So understand what time of day you're most effective, you're most creative. Then kind of carve your day around that and try to find as much alone time as you can. Second thing you need to think about as far as that daily schedule is concerned is, where are you most creative? Now, for me, I think the perfect creative place for me would be a bank vault, because I need it quiet. Man, I can't have phone calls going. I can't have the television on. I can't play music. I can't even have a window open. I'm so easily distracted. I need to force myself to be in solitude by myself, alone, in a place where I will not be disturbed. Now, I understand that many people listening to this podcast right now are in situations where you're working. You have, 8 to 5 jobs. And you can't just get away. You can't determine your daily schedule so much, and you certainly can't move where you work. But the truth is, you can start shaping your day even if you're a full-time employee. For instance, I wrote my first 2 books by coming in on 2 hours early when I had a regular, normal day job. Back in I was in my early 30s, I had a normal day job, and I would come in 2 hours early from 6 a.m. to 8. No phones were ringing. Nobody else was in the office. My kids were really small, so I could get away and write and focus and concentrate. That was the time for me, and I wrote 2 books that way. So even if you're in a regular day, normal job, you could start shaping your day around ways that will help you focus. Now, as far as solitude is concerned, I will say this. I did read a study not long ago that indicates the dull roar of coffee shop conversation does stimulate certain people. You may be one of those people that actually gets more focused and more stimulated when you're at a place like a coffee shop where there's constant talking in the background and going on. I couldn't do it. There's no way. I want to watch people. But if that turns you on, find that place. Find the place where you can be most creative. Now, by the way, it's interesting to note that, I mentioned showers a minute ago, ideas in the shower. 72% of people, studies have shown, 72% of people have their ideas in the shower. And I think it's a lot to do with biological reasons. You get into that warm water, that water's hitting your face, you're alone, you're not worrying about that nasty email you got from a colleague, you're not thinking about the bills that are due tomorrow, and suddenly when you start releasing all that energy, ideas start flowing. For me, the car is the same way. I get a lot of ideas driving in the car. So always be open to those kind of moments where you can get an incredible amount of insight. Another thing that I think is really important for creative people is start doing things differently. Now, I know this sounds kind of strange, but the fact is, physically start doing things differently. If you want to recharge your creativity, drive home a different way. Go to the park a different way. Go shopping in a different shopping center. Change your habits, and suddenly you'll start seeing new things, and your creativity will suddenly start getting recharged. It's really, really important. One of the things we know is creativity fades when we don't use it. And that comes a lot from habit. We are creatures, we are such deadly creatures of habit. Human beings, we get in these ruts, and ruts kill creativity. You go home the same way. You eat at the same restaurants. You watch the same kind of TV programs. You read the same kind of books. You get in rut after rut after rut. You hang out with the same kind of people. Let me tell you, start shifting the people you hang out with. Start reading different books. Start watching different movies or TV programs. Start challenging yourself in a different way, and suddenly you're going to see your creativity come alive once again. Get out of the ruts. Make a commitment to yourself right now to absolutely get out of the rut. Last couple things I would just say is that daydreaming, we've gotten some studies now that have indicated daydreaming is not just good for creativity, it's actually good for your brain. Neuroscience has indicated that daydreaming, this is that act of relaxed, random thinking where ideas can just suddenly flow and pop in and out of your head. Daydreaming, thinking about other situations, other places, is actually good for your brain. So find a place where you can spend more time. And I'll tell you this has robbed us from daydreaming. It used to be when we got bored, we would daydream. Sitting in a classroom, waiting in the doctor's office, someplace else at the line at the grocery store. We used to daydream. I tell you, I've had ideas pop into my head standing in line at the grocery store, at the doctor's office, all kind of places. Now, what do? We pull this thing out. The minute we get bored, we pull this thing out and start checking social media. That is robbing you of some of the most important creative time you'll ever experience. So think about that. The next time you have that moment to pull this out, you default to that, give it up, put it away. And the last thing I would say is, look, when it comes to creativity, understand that most breakthrough ideas are ridiculed before they are valued. You know what? They're not, let me put it this way. A lot of people are not going to like that brilliant new idea you just had, because a lot of people have invested in the status quo. Maybe your coworkers, maybe your boss, maybe your family. Who knows? A lot of people have invested in the status quo. So that breakthrough idea you had may not be revered. It may not be valued. It may not be appreciated. Stick with it. Pursue it. Because every great idea goes through that cycle. It's hated. Then people start to think twice about it. And then it starts to be admired. Always go through that cycle and stick with it long enough. Be tenacious. Stick with it long enough for it to happen. So let me give you a couple other thoughts that I think are really, really important when it comes to recharging your creativity. One is start reading books about creativity. Nothing inspires me more than when I read books about creativity. And I found this one by Will Gompertz called Think Like an Artist and Lead a More Creative and Productive Life. Think Like an Artist. And it's great because it's a small book. You can put it in a purse. You can put it in your man bag or your backpack or briefcase, whatever you carry. And you know what? Pull this out next time you think about pulling out your iPhone. Next time you're at line at the doctor's office or at the grocery store or some other place, pull a book like this out. Start reading it because that will excite you. It'll supercharge your creativity. This is what will take you to the next level, not checking your social media page one more time. And let me tell you one other tool that I think is incredibly important, and that is analog. We live in this digital age, and I have to admit, I'm a pretty early adopter. I want the first iPhone. I want the first app. I want to download all the new operating system as quickly as I can. My friend Kevin Kelly said recently that an app is updated on average now every 30 days. I mean, we live in a new life, a new world of we're constantly learning new things. We're all newbies. But the truth is, I discovered that apps are so easy, and to-do lists are especially sensitive to me because I've probably downloaded most of them. I've tried Trello and Wunderlist and Things and Asana and on and on. And what I've discovered is digital apps are so easy that we start putting everything into that list. I can with Things, I landed on Things, for instance, which I really like. It's a really elegant to-do list app, productivity app. But the problem is, at the click of a button, I can turn an email into a to-do. I can turn a passage from a website into a to-do. I can make a Word document into a to-do. It's so easy. I suddenly looked up and realized I got hundreds of to-dos. And when they become overwhelming like that, we just ignore them. We shut down. So I started thinking maybe I need to carve out time for a little analog space in my digital life, and I started looking at print planners. Now here's the thing, and I think this will really help your creativity. I looked at print planners and I found out two kinds. One over here is just blank pages, which is fine. Moleskin, a lot of people do those kind of planners. They're mostly sketchbooks for artists, but they're a lot of work. The bullet planner would go, the bullet journal would go into that category, but you've got to get your ruler and your markers out and create the lines for the to-do list and the dates and whatever you want to, you've got to create it all. I don't have time for that. I got projects I have to do. Then on the other end of the spectrum, I found journals and planners that had way too many templates and asked too many questions and had too much information. They wanted to know what my magical moment of the day was. They want to know what my great daily affirmation is. They want to know what I'm eating on weekends or how I'm relaxing on weekends. I don't need to put that in a planner. I'm going to watch the football game this weekend. I don't need to note that in my planner. So I could not find a journal or a planner that was really focused on creative people, that gives us what we need to help us track our day and keep on track, but then gives us the freedom to unleash our creativity. So I came up with my own. I partnered with Broad Street Publishers, and we created Unique, the ultimate planner for creative professionals. Now, it's unique in a lot of ways because it's different from any planner we found out there. And let me show you just a few reasons why it's so incredibly unique. For instance, it helps you come to grips with your big projects. First couple pages. I mean, we have big goals. We have next steps. Just the first few pages. You know, I didn't want to belabor it. I didn't want to have it throughout. And by the way, it's a 6-month planner. So it gives you a lot of time to dream, a lot of time to think, a lot of time to track. But I have big goals and the next steps for getting there. It's just a few pages at the front because I want to remind you of the big targets you're shooting for. So many times we get distracted by small targets when we forget the big target we're really trying to hit. I've got a space for habits to develop, to start tracking your habits. But then we immediately get into our daily planner. And here's all I have. This is what makes it so effective and so interesting. First of all, I have priorities. You know, there's 3 priorities. I sit down every morning and I look at that giant to-do list I have and I think, okay, what are the 3 most important things I need to accomplish today? That's what I put down here, and my chances of knocking these off and getting them done are so much higher. So much higher. Then I did what I couldn't find in any personal planner, and that is have a personal list. And that, you know, here's the thing. As a creative person, we get so caught up in our projects that we blow the personal part of our lives. We forget to get that birthday card for our spouse. We forget to go to the drugstore to get that prescription. We forget to take our car in to get it fixed. We have a personal life, and it matters. And I want to remind creative people that you want that balance and you have that creative and personal life that works together. So I've got a place for your personal goals for that day. Then I have key calendar events. You know, here's the thing. So many planners have a whole calendar in them for the year. I don't need it. I mean, most of us, if you're working in a creative job right now, you're probably on a shared calendar. Our team at Cooke Pictures uses Google. I want Laura and Dan, Kathleen to know what's my schedule, and I want to know their schedule and what's happening this week. So we have shared calendars, so we don't need to waste pages on full-on calendars. However, on every day, I put key calendar events, the key most important things in your day, so you don't forget and you prep and you get ready for those big events. Then at the bottom, I have a place for other tasks. I mean, if you're creative, you know that other things come up during the day. Maybe it's client notes or revisions. Maybe it's a last-minute project that comes in. Maybe it's that thing that we forgot about that deadline and we have to insert that. So put that in there just to make sure you're tracking those things as well. And that's all. The next page, the whole page, is just a dot grid pattern that lets you draw, write, sketch, whatever it is you want to do. Gives you that kind of freedom to sketch out a website or a social media campaign, whatever it is you want to do. I like to use sticky notes in mine. And then, of course, there's a little creative quote at the bottom. From me, from other thinkers around the world, little creative quotes that will help spur you and inspire you for the day. Then the last thing I just mentioned is at the very back, it's got an index. You know, if you have a brilliant idea on page 92, you need to go back here and write it down so you can easily find it. So many people keep these planners but never go back and review them because they just get lost. But this index will help you track your great ideas and the projects you're working on. So that's it. You know what? It's not so much that you spend the first hour of your day filling out, stupid questions that you don't need. But at the same time, it's got enough templates to guide you so you don't have to start from scratch. That's what I love about the Unique planner for creative professionals. I'd encourage you to go get it. Go to uniquecreativeplanner.com. You can take a look at it. You can see all the features. There's many more than I've described here, but it'll help you jumpstart your creativity and get it back on track. I really believe that this creative planner is going to really be a jolt for your life. I think your creative life needs to, you need to have a regular rhythm, a regular routine, a regular schedule, just like Mason Curry wrote in Daily Rituals that, remember, the greatest creative artists all were slaves to routine. They loved a daily routine. This book, this planner will help you get on that routine, but it doesn't bog you down and hold you back. It releases you to unleash your creative power, because you know what? The last thing creative professionals need are more rules, because you know what? Creativity can't be forced. It can only be unleashed. So I'd encourage you, go check it out, uniquecreativeplanner.com, and find more information about it. And as always, subscribe to this podcast. We're talking about creativity today, but we're also going to be talking about branding, about pitching, about how to get your idea to a bigger audience. This podcast is really built around how to get your message out there to as many people as possible. That's the key thing. You have an idea, you have a message, you have a story that needs to be shared, that the world needs to hear, and we want you to be able to share it to as many people as possible. Also, check me out at philcooke.com. I'm Cook with an E, Philcooke. That's my blog. I'm writing every week, and I'm talking about the intersection of faith, media, and culture. We're talking Hollywood. We're talking branding. We're talking media strategy, publishing, digital media, social media. We're talking there about all these issues that affect your life and help you communicate your story more effectively. So philcooke.com, check it out. Subscribe to this podcast and share it with your friends. Let me encourage you, if you have creative friends who are struggling with a screenplay idea, a book idea, whatever, music, an album, something you want to create, if you're struggling with how to get it out there, they need to be listening to this blog as well. So please share it with them. It's so incredibly important. Check it out. We'd love to see you. I'll see you during the next episode, because this stuff is so important for helping you share your story with the world.